Hey everyone, Jenny Wise here from WiseMind Yoga Psychology and the Wise Method Inner Circle. And I am so excited to be here with Jessica Deese. She is one of our beautiful soul sisters and one of our students. I'm just excited for her to share her journey and some of the things that she's learned on her yoga journey. So Jess, do you want to take a minute to introduce yourself and, your a little bit of your background and kind of how you started with your yoga journey? And then we'll talk a little bit more about how you were drawn to yoga psychology.
Sure. Okay, so yeah, my journey started. I had complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I had struggled with substance use disorder for many years, and I got clean off substances, but I never really felt better. So it was like 10 years later, I'm like, okay, this isn't working. And I got a hold of the book, The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. And there was like a whole chapter on yoga in there. So I'm like, okay, well, I got nothing to lose. So I'm like looking around and I found Kai Yoga Studio in Fairborn, shout out, where I teach and where I got my training. And the rest is history. So it just transformed my life like nothing else had. It, I call it yoga magic. It just kind of saved my life, really, in a sense. So that was the beginning of my journey to unraveling everything. And then after I did started yoga, then I got into therapy, and then it was so powerful that I decided to become a teacher and become a counselor, actually. So it's kind of how I got here.
Yeah, which is amazing because you said that you're studying right now also to be a social worker,
That's
right?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is amazing. So you're kind of taking this one step further that you'll integrate, your yoga journey with your recovery
Mm-hmm.
journey. And then, yeah,
Sorry, which
no,
is
no,
what
no.
we're doing now. Yeah. So
Yeah,
we're actually
yeah.
teaching trauma conscious yoga and integrating the Wise Mind Yoga Psychology Method with my clients, where I work at Divine Intervention Recovery Center in Enon, Ohio. So yeah, I offer that to my clients once a week. We do yoga, and I try to educate them on mindfulness and breath work, and all the ways that um, getting into the body is really a necessary part of healing, in my
Mhm.
opinion.
Yeah. So what would you say around, I know we talked a little bit about this, kind of where, talk therapy gets you like to a certain point and what it looks like
Hmm. Hmm.
to do that deeper healing that has to be done on a somatic level.
Right. Yeah, in my opinion, it might not be a popular opinion, but in my opinion, in my lived experience, trauma, it kind of exists on a spectrum. So people may have had traumatic experiences where your fight or flight gets activated, and things are happening in your body. You're taking in this sensory information into your body, and it kind of gets stored there. So you might not register it cognitively as trauma, but where it gets stored in the body, it just kind of sends these signals. So that's where like anxiety comes from, or depression, which is like the freeze response, right? So talk therapy is awesome, right? It takes talk therapy as necessary as well, but it only takes you so deep, right? You really, in my opinion, to fully heal and reintegrate, you really have to get into that somatic work. So you have to get into the sensory processing where that information first came in, right? That's where it lands. It lands in the body, and then it goes up to the brain, and then the brain tells us what it is, right? So, but it comes in the body first. So if we're not addressing that root, then in my opinion, healing is incomplete. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense, girl, because you and I are talking the same language, right?
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
we both struggled with complex PTSD
Hmm.
and, um, we both struggled with doing a lot of talk therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I did talk therapy starting in my 20s,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I did it for over 20 years until I started doing yoga.
Yeah.
So you and I are I'm getting goosebumps talking about it, because without getting emotional, because you and I really connected that way on a soul sister level,
Yeah.
that we got it. So I had my own addictions and my own recovery, and mine was more around like being a workaholic,
Mm-hmm.
being a perfectionist,
Mm-hmm.
um, people pleasing, just to name a few things,
Right.
right?
Right.
Being addicted to exercise in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I've struggled with eating different things. I wouldn't diagnose it as a disorder, but symptoms like it.
Right.
Um, and so I myself, maybe when I was in my 20s, right, I definitely feel like I had social anxiety, and
Right.
I would have like a drink, or a beer or whatever,
Yep.
even into my 20s, like to make myself feel better, right? To ease, you hear people talk about, oh, I'm just going to have a drink just to, ease the edge off.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that, Jess, until when I was younger, until I got
Right.
older and I look back in retrospect, because I don't drink anymore, just from my own. I've never had an addiction to it,
Right. Right.
like, but I haven't drank like going on 8 years. But the point being that not anything wrong with, somebody wants to have a glass of wine or whatever. Like, I'm
Right.
not saying you have to go alcohol free. I'm
Right.
just sharing my personal journey around it, that I realized in retrospect that I needed it to feel comfortable in a social situation, because I didn't realize I had social anxiety because of the unresolved trauma that I had.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so in order for me to feel comfortable in social situations, oftentimes I would, have a
Right.
glass of wine or beer or whatever.
And
Um, and so I definitely had that as something in my toolbox, which you and I talked about, that is an
absolutely.
unhealthy, right? Unhealthy coping
Absolutely.
mechanism.
And that's all really, yeah, that's all. And so addiction or having a glass of wine or shopping or exercise or any of those other things, these are just ways that we deal with the sensations in our body. So that social anxiety, that's a sensation you're having in your body. It's a somatic reaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we reach for these, coping mechanisms, which may be healthy or maybe not, and they're just symptoms of the more deeper underlying things, that are
Mm-hmm.
going on.
Yeah. And so can you talk a little bit more around, when you had mentioned with those 10 years, right? Like,
Mhm.
you had kind of moved away from, the addiction, but you were still in recovery until you found yoga. What
Absolutely.
what were some of the things? I know you said you got into talk therapy a little bit, but like, did you end up, if you don't mind me asking, like with medications, or like, were there
Mhm.
other things that
Yeah.
you kind of like before you found the yoga?
I actually tried all the things. The first time I went to counseling, I was 11 years old. So, and I had done talk therapy off and on for years, even through my addiction, and multiple different medication, all different kind of antidepressants and anti-anxiety and all the things. Um, so when I stopped with the addiction, that was in December 2006. And yeah, I was taking antidepressant medications, some anti-anxiety medications, and those, were kind of helping me manage my symptoms. But the biggest, I had a lot of rage. I had a lot of anger. Like I was kind of a rageaholic, um, very emotionally dysregulated, incredibly emotionally dysregulated. And the medications didn't really help with that at all.
Mhm.
Um, Not to say that I'm against medication. This full disclaimer there. Some people do very well with medication and it could be a valuable tool. But for me personally, it didn't really help. So it got to the point, and I ended up getting pregnant with my oldest daughter, who is going to be 11 in April. And I was on antidepressant Effexor And I ended up getting off of it because it's not really safe in pregnancy. Well, I went through this horrible withdrawal, um, just awful. And I went off of it correctly, the way you're supposed to, little by little. And
Mhm.
I just went through this terrible withdrawal. So I decided for myself that I didn't want to do that again.
Mhm.
So after having Nevaeh and Cassie, I had them 15 months apart. Fast forward, I kind of was really having some trauma triggers from the way my birth story was, and lots of things just coming up. And it was getting to a cumulative point of I'm feeling like using again. So that's when I really started to seek out, okay, what can I do differently to
Mhm.
make this better? And that's when somebody ended up recommending that book to me, and that book really was a life-changing thing for me, which
Mhm.
really then led me to Kai Yoga, and the Ashtanga Yoga is what I practice personally.
Mhm.
Um, Not like the really super rigid kind, but you
Mhm.
know, in a adaptive way. Um, and it just changed my life, just getting
Mhm.
into the body. So I had this moment once when I first started practicing, and I was at home, thankfully. I just had this moment and I felt something release from the hip area, and I don't know what it was. I didn't have any cognitive memory of what it was, but just
Mhm.
had this like breakdown, on my mat, and
Mhm.
just like the sobbing, ugly cry kind of breakdown. And at that moment, I was like, wow, um, this is really powerful. Like at that moment, I really understood
Mhm.
um, in a somatic way, like just a knowing of this
Mhm.
works. This is
Mhm.
what's going to help me get better.
Right.
So, you know,
And girl, I'm right there with you because I know what that ugly cry looks like, and I've spent many many tears on my mat as well. So I get that it's real, and it is evidence based as far as the somatic work that's been done on the mind and body on books like the Body Keeps Score.
hmm
So for those out there that think yoga is woo woo, and that's not to say there's not woo woo teachers out there, but what we're
right.
teaching is not woo woo, and it is evidence based,
Absolutely.
and it works.
Sometimes it outperforms medications in clinical studies. Actually, it's
Right.
pretty incredible. It performs as well as, and at times with certain populations, will outperform. So
Right.
it's pretty
Pretty, yeah,
incredible. It's
incredible.
really incredible.
So let's take a minute. If you could share with the students out there that don't know me, right? Or some of those students that might be waiting on the sidelines and they're feeling like they're not trusting themselves, or they're feeling self doubt, or they're feeling scared,
Mhm.
to jump on a call with me, or even to maybe DM us with questions
Mhm.
about what it's like to get on a consult with me, and, you know, the what our support system is like.
Mhm. Well, that's pretty much was like this, I think, when we got on our first call. We just kind of sat and talked like an hour, like just talking about like our experiences in life, and um, what led us to yoga, and and the support has been good. The my cohort, the ladies in my cohort have been great. Um, it's been overall just a good experience.
Mhm.
I think the program itself, I was really hesitant because I'm obviously a full time student. I only work 1 day a week.
Mhm.
And so I was really hesitant due to my financial situation.
Mhm.
And so I went ahead and made the jump. And, you've worked with me through all of that, and were
Mhm.
able to get me on the monthly payments and everything. And I didn't realize how comprehensive the program is. Like, there is so much content,
Mhm.
so much, right?
Mhm.
So I think it's definitely it's an incredibly comprehensive program. Um, so I think it was definitely worth that.